morning. Welcome to this week's Capital Confidential. We have our chair about to come in from Kendall. I asked him to kind of readjust, so he's coming in. But in the meantime, reminder today, this afternoon, we're having our Stand Up for Justice with Al Green, Gene Wu, other folks who are frontline warriors. It's a great opportunity to cheer them on, encourage them, and fellowship with really hard fighters. We also have plenty of opportunities. Plenty of opportunities for both engagement with our community. Our days in action are continuing, as well as standing up to protest and make sure that everything going on that we know shouldn't be going on is stood up against. So we got lots of opportunities. If you're not on our mailing list, and especially if you're not a sustaining member, it's on here. We'll put it in the chat link, and it's on there. So thank you, Chair Kendall Scudder, for being here with us today. I understand you're down in the valley making your tour. What's been going on with you?
Oh my gosh! Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. We are down in the valley. This is my first big trip as chair of the party, and I thought it was important to go to the Rio Grande Valley to make a point that we are not ceding territory in the valley. We're going to fight to hold it and get back to where we used to be in the valley, and make sure that people in the valley see that Texas Democrats are standing on the front lines for working folks. So very excited. We have a working person's town hall this afternoon at the McAllen Public Library that we're getting ready for now.
Well, you also had a chance, I know, when you're coming through to hit the Houston area, as well as not just here in Harris County, but spent some time down in Pearland, not too far from where I grew up down in Missouri City.
Yeah, I'm covering a lot of ground because at the end of the day, what people tell us constantly is that the Texas Democratic Party hasn't been present in places where, Democrats have been performing poorly. There are 40 mid-sized cities in the state of Texas that have over 100,000 people in them. In any other state, those would be considered population centers. But because Texas is so big, we don't treat it that way. So what are the Democrats doing in places like Amarillo and Abilene and Beaumont and Corpus Christi, right? And so my prerogative is to get to every corner of this state that we can and try to make sure that we're building a grassroots network in every corner of this state.
Well, but you can't pander about Harris County too much. We're kind of once we hit the numbers, it kind of doesn't matter what happens in Amarillo. Not that we don't want our brothers and sisters out there to do well, but, go ahead and pander a little bit.
No, I mean, what I will say is that it will always matter what's happening out there because there's people that live out there that need Democrats to be able to be active and fighting for them on local things, right? And county level things. But you are correct that if we can get Harris County to the same kind of percentage spread that you see other major counties like Dallas or Travis, it's game over for Republicans in Texas. So Harris County is crucial to this piece of how are we flipping the state. You can't just do it by going to red areas and trying to do better. You can't just do it by going to blue areas and expecting them to milk more votes. It's got to be a little bit of both. And I think Better O'Rourke taught us that in 2018. Surely the party that ushered in the Great Society and the New Deal and that landed a man on the moon can put organizers in both rural and urban places at the same time.
Well, you ought to think so. And one of the things you shared with us when you were down here in Harris County, kind of on a brief stop through, is that you've had a chance to talk to our DNC chair, who has talked a lot about how it can't happen without Texas. What are you hearing, and do you believe it?
Yeah, I do. So here's the kind of really scary reality for people who care about good government and policy that works for working people. The scary piece is that after the next redistricting cycle, what we're going to see are states that are traditionally blue states are going to be losing some populations after the Senate, and places that are red states are going to be gaining them. That means places like Arizona, Florida, Texas are going to be gaining electoral college votes and members of Congress. Places like California and New York are going to be losing them. So even if we held all of these blue wall states that we aren't holding right now, there's not a path to the presidency unless we find some other pathways. And that's probably running through the South. So places like North Carolina and Texas become crucial if we want to have Democrats in the White House moving forward. So it feels to me like the DNC recognizes that. They're starting to have some serious conversations with us about what's the path forward, not just in 2026, but in 2028, 2030, 2032, to make sure that we as a party are viable moving forward. And, North Carolina is certainly an option there, but Texas is the prize pig. If we're able to flip Texas, you'll never see another Republican president. So I'm sorry, but we have a saying in East Texas: you can't put a sack of flour in the oven and expect it to make biscuits. You've got to have all these steps in between to get there. And what we've been doing is showing up in the middle of elections and saying, well, can we spend our way out of this? And the answer is no. We have to do that work right now to be able to be ready for that whenever it's coming.
Well, and I want to point out, we've already got one question in the Q and answer. I think it's Jacob stirring up a little trouble, but I'll give it to you in a minute. But for those of y'all that have questions, put them in there, and we'd be happy to have Kendall take a shot at them. So, in one of the things that you mentioned, and this is something we've been doing in Harris County since November, is engagement. We have volunteers out in our communities every month. We're trying to not just show up election day. How important do you really think that is, even in something like Harris County, where we've got so many folks out there?
There are communities all across this state, even communities within communities. So I would consider this communities within Harris County who feel like they only see us during elections. And we should be utilizing our constituency caucuses and folks on the ground to be building those relationships year round. That's how you make sure that Republicans aren't swooping in and stealing groups from us. That's how you make sure that they aren't pandering out and buying votes out from under us, is we build longstanding relationships and don't take people for granted. There were 1.1 million Democrats who voted in 2020 that chose not to vote in 2024. Why weren't we worth showing up for? And we can either argue with them and tell them why they were wrong because we believe they're wrong and, lecture them, or we can own up to it. And we can say, okay, well, clearly something we were doing wasn't resonating. So what can we do to make it right? And that's kind of the path that I would choose to take there. So, we've got some restructuring that we're doing at the state party. And whenever we're in a better spot, we're going to try to move forward to do that type of work in communities, year-round organizing in conjunction with our constituency caucuses to make sure that, particularly communities of color who are only reached out to us during election periods don't feel like we're just milking them for votes, and that we're here to help them whenever we're not in the middle of elections. That's how I think that looks.
All right, well, let's turn to something that's a little touchier, and it's what Jacob was asking about, and he's asking about what have you heard good, bad, and ugly about our current mayor, John Whitmire, longtime Democratic, who's actually publicly showing up at a fundraiser for Crenshaw, a Republican representative from down here. And I'll maybe let you deal with that in a minute, but kind of a broader question for party activists, for folks that care, for folks who are working for the party like you are. My reality is that, gerrymandering can be the worst thing we have because our folks don't necessarily get out there and understand that we need to raise all boats, not just worry about getting reelected in a particular district. How do you think that's going to change doing what you're doing?
I mean, not all districts are created equally, right?
And well, actually they are. The Republicans are trying to do that. They like our little gerrymandering.
Well, I guess my point in saying that is that there are some districts where you can win a primary with 3,000 votes.
Yep.
And then there are some districts that you have to get 12 to 15,000 votes, right? And the problem with them building it that way is that you have members that are elected who only have to talk to a very small group of people, and then the system works just fine for them. But it's not working just fine for us. Okay, it's not creating a world where we're juicing votes out of districts that are low-hanging fruit for us because our incumbents feel a little too safe. So we have to figure out how to approach that. I don't think the way to approach that is to go to them and poke them in their chests and tell them how dare they need to learn how to be better partners. I think the way that you handle it is you say, hey, we're looking at some realities. Here's what the data is telling us. What can we do to be more helpful to you in your district? The party hasn't always been a helpful entity. And those of us who are active in party politics, we miss that a lot. But I think it's important that we don't forget it. That not the only, like, these activists that don't always view the party as a good partner aren't alone. The electeds are the same way. And so, how are we hitting a reset right now at this unique opportunity to do that so that they can start feeling like the party's helpful again? So, maybe it means we go to some of those districts and we say, we would like to help pay for a staff member in your district that is working on the X vote, whichever group demographic we're wanting to focus on. If you'll foot part of the bill for it, we'll foot part of the bill for it. Maybe the HDCC can foot part of the bill for it, and we'll all coordinated campaign share on that data. So now they're getting data about their district. It's helping them. They're feeling like we're a partner, and we're not just coming in and dictating to them what they should and shouldn't be doing. It's no one is getting out of bed every morning trying to figure out how to sabotage our party except for Republicans. We need to start treating our Democrats like they're allies and partners and like we aren't smarter than them. They know their districts better than us. What can we do to help you find success there?
Well, we got two questions I'm going to give you at the same time, one from Mallory, one from James. One of them has to do with education, which is, vouchers is upon us. It's been upon us since really the last 2 years. Democratic Party obviously is on the right side of that. What do you see our party doing that's working, and what do we need to do more to make sure folks understand that, Republicans have been tearing down education in this state?
Yeah, I mean, public schools are my pet issue. Everybody's got a reason that they get out of bed and do all of this political stuff. And mine is public schools. And so this is a horrifying moment for public school advocates all across the state. Before we talk about it, let's talk about why schools are super important. Because I think we just talk about it a lot, but we don't bring up why our party is so strong on public schools. Because we are a party that constantly fights to make sure that the working men and women of this country have opportunities to succeed and that their kids will have an opportunity to live the lives that they choose to live while lifting themselves up and working hard to find success. The greatest tool for upward economic mobility on the globe is the American public school system. And it has been proven time and time again to be the case. And so why are Republicans trying to dismantle an institution that is known for helping people from low-income backgrounds, tough backgrounds, be able to educate themselves and seek a better life for themselves? Because whenever you have higher levels of education, you are paid more. And these oligarchs that run the Republican Party, the donors and owners of Greg Abbott, they want to keep your kid out of the opportunity to receive quality public education because they want to keep their wages low. They want to keep them on farms. They want to keep them on assembly lines. They want to keep them on factories and not give them the opportunities for upward economic mobility. So let's call it what it is. It's the opportunity for the rich folks to keep their boots on our neck. So with that being said, this is why that fight is so important. We don't have a whole lot left to negotiate with in the legislature because, frankly, we've gotten rid of some of the bargaining chips that I would have liked to have seen us use. Things like electing party leadership, fights within this budget agreement. But we will see the fight for vouchers next week. I think you will see at least a strong crew of Democrats that are throwing down and doing the right thing. It's our obligation to make sure that every single one of those Democrats understand that this is the fight worth having and that they are going to do everything they can to obstruct a voucher program that will shut down more schools around this state, deprive kids with special needs from any opportunities to succeed, and deny kids from low-income communities the opportunity for upward economic mobility. So we have to use every lever of power that we have in the next week, whether that's points of orders, whether that's walkouts, whether that's chaining ourselves to the doors of the building. Whatever it is we have to do, we should do everything within our tool belt to stop this voucher program because too many people are counting on us.
Thank you. Well, what do they say? It stinks on ice, what they're doing for sure. So we got a question from Rob Hollenbach, who's done a lot of incredible work down here on data, has worked with Sam. And by the way, I think a lot of folks are excited that you have someone who's so embedded in the data at the party, working with you now as executive director. And the question, I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically is, what's TDP? What do you envision you can do to customize, to provide the tools so that our party, HDP, the clubs, the folks who are on the ground are actually doing it? What do you see? What do you see changing?
Yeah, so let me brag right quick about the TDP data team. We are a nationally renowned data team, oftentimes staffed larger than the DNCs. Does that mean that everything our data team does is perfect? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that all of our data is high quality and amazing? No, it doesn't. But what it means is that we have some extremely high quality data scientists that work with our team at the TDP to develop models and try to deliver success. And I thought it was important to send a message to people on the ground by putting the head of our data department in charge of the party that we're going to be making data driven decisions, that we are going to be focused on improving things like VAN to make sure that we are equipping grassroots with the tools they need to be successful. The party has tried to be all things for all people for too long, and we aren't resourced to be able to do that. We need to pick a couple of things that the party can do and do it really well. And then we can expand beyond that. And
Well,
I intend
and I think you're onto something that's really important. What do you see? And it's, obviously you've been what, 11 days now? Where do you see the party has maybe expended efforts that maybe it shouldn't be?
I think that in the past, the party has tried to treat itself as the PA de la Resistance for voter registration. Well, voter registration is something you can do through nonprofit organizations. It doesn't have to be done through the party, right? And we haven't had the bandwidth to do it. I think sometimes when we talk about coordinated campaigns, the party tries to walk in the door and tell everybody what to do instead of being a partner with them. We don't have the resources to act like that, right? I mean, I think there's some examples like that. But then there's things like this data team, voter protection team, makes a lot of sense for us to be doing county services, party services. And so I want to make sure we're doing things well. So putting Sam as our executive director, a guy who is universally beloved throughout our party because he treats people with respect and he is a really kind of mastermind in this data solutions. I wanted to make sure I sent a message to everyone that that's a high priority. So things that we want to do on the data side, I want to see us making some data investments in targeted areas. I'd love to do it all across the state, but I'm just going to be realistic with people. That's financially unfeasible right now. And we have to find ways to make sure that we're using our resources where we can. I'd love to get to a world where we can do data investments in a huge way across the whole state. But right now we're not there, but I'd love to see us try to zhuzh that up a bit. I'd love to see us expand our data team so that they can be even more responsive to some of the work that y'all are doing on the ground and try to put things in our data that we don't currently have. Wouldn't it be great if you could pull a list of public school teachers out of VAN? Wouldn't it be great if you could pull a list of realtors? Wouldn't it be great if you could pull a list of renters? Wouldn't it be great if you could pull a list of unregistered voters, right? There are components of data that we don't have available within our voter files that I'd like to try to see if there are ways we can create those to better enable our grassroots to do their work. Because at the end of the day, if we are not equipping our grassroots to do their jobs, all we're doing is paying a bunch of consultants to try to run mail and comms programs. And that's just not how you get out of the situation that we find ourselves in.
Well, winner, chicken dinner on where not to put money, because I think that's almost as important sometimes as where you are going to put it, because you're right. You don't have unlimited resources yet in Texas or in Harris County, and figuring out where you're kind of spinning your wheels or duplicating what other folks are doing is a really important part of the job, which leads me to the next question from a school teacher, Michelle Williams. And actually, it's how do I get involved? She's union president. Here's the easy question, Michelle, and this is for everybody. Send an email to mike@harrisdemocrats.com. We will connect you. You live in a Republican district, but there's a lot of things you can do to start putting pressure on that Republican representative not to kill public education with Abbott and the folks, the billionaires funding them. So Mike at Harris Democrats will get you connected. We have an organizing team. That's their job. We want to have you doing it. We've already been doing calls, by the way, organized here in Harris County, not just to our Democratic, but also to our Republican representatives, because they have a big old dashboard and it's making an impact. We got lots of opportunities. Please reach out. We asked about, or we got a question about voting protection. That's obviously something near and dear. Nicole Peterson set up a program that I think is the best in the country, certainly, outstanding opportunity. How important is voter protection part of the pie that you see at TDP?
So it's crucial, but I do want to back up and have a little bit of input on that last question about what you can do to get involved. We at the TDP have a year-round organizing director that we have chosen to put into place. That has never happened before because we want to make a point that we are organizing year-round. Now, we have not been able to build that team out the way we want to because we don't have quite the sustaining donor base to be able to accomplish that. You can go to txdems.co/new era TDP to become a sustaining donor. We greatly appreciate it. But something that you could also consider is there are 55 counties in the state of Texas that don't have county chairs. That's more than 20% of Democratic counties not having a chair. We also have 4,500 vacant precinct chair seats. That's half. So if you're interested in getting involved, now is not the time for imposter syndrome. Okay. We're all trying to do everything we can to get our country back. And so check your imposter syndrome at the door, sign up to become a precinct chair, and let's start working from the very grassroots level that we can all the way up. Don't think that because you've never been one or because you aren't familiar with what they are, that you can't do it. We are here to help you. We are putting programs in place to train you. Please become a precinct chair, whether you're in Harris County or anywhere around the state. So on the voter protection piece, I think the voter protection piece is crucial and essential to what we do as a party. I know that y'all have just an incredible program that y'all operate in Harris County, and we're just lucky to have y'all doing that because you're 25% of the vote, and it takes just a huge chunk off of our back so that we can help places where they aren't able to resource to create those types of programs. They may not even have the attorneys willing to do it with them. And so that's a part of the beauty of these partnerships where we're all working together, is that y'all handle Harris for us, and then we try to be a resource where we can, but then we also are now freed up to hit the other 75% of the state. So what that means is that we'll be recruiting people, particularly attorneys, that are able to get on our call line 844-TX votes, so that if there are any issues at the ballot box whenever you're trying to cast your ballot, you can reach out there and we can put you in contact with folks that can help either cure your ballots, make sure we're chasing your provisional ballots, making sure that you have an opportunity to have your ballots cast. That is a very confusing part of voting that a lot of people don't understand very well. And that's where we see us plugging in extremely well to be helpful to folks. 844-TX votes, that's our voter protection hotline. And we're going to build our team up here at the TDP so that they can be functional, not just in voter protection, but primary administration and then legislative work, so that that can all kind of be housed in the same location. And we can try to move the agenda during legislative sessions to help with voter protection in the long run.
Well, let me put a bookmark. Actually, our chase to vote, the voter mail by mail, was about we had an edge of about 42,000, which is why we have almost all, but not everybody, Democratic winning in Harris County down ballot, because it's just that important. A little bit of time. I want to make sure we grab one that I think is kind of starting to be top of mind, even though it's April of this year and not March of next year. Recruiting of statewide candidates. James has a question about, where's that going? How do you see that? How can we help on this recruitment of top tier candidates statewide that we need to take them down?
I know that people are getting very antsy about this, especially with the Ken Paxton news of him running against Cornyn. I just want everybody to take a deep breath for a second. I know that we in a dream world would have the whole ticket put together and cranking forward right now. But we're in the middle of a legislative session. A lot of those people who are considering those decisions are not legally able to jump in and start fundraising for those spots right now. So you got to kind of get through this legislative session in order to be able to really put those pieces in place. We are going to have wonderful candidates for Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. I am not concerned about that. I have had conversations with people who are interested there. That would be fine candidates. I personally do not subscribe to the point of view that the party apparatus should be putting our thumb on the scale in these primaries, right? We should just be administering a fair primary and letting the voters choose who they want their nominees to be. So I'm not here to tell anybody they can't run. I'm not here to tell anybody they should run. I'm instead just kind of taking that information, seeing what we can do to be helpful and provide resources. The places that I have concern and that I lose sleep over are some of these statewide down ballots, right? Places like Supreme Court, Court of Appeals. Those are really hard to qualify for the ballot. You have to get signatures in every Court of Appeals district in the state of Texas to be able to qualify for those seats. So that is a place that we're directing a lot of our candidate recruitment spot to, where we can not only recruit, but also assist in getting people on the ballot there. We're going to have 2 railroad commission spots because Christy Craddock is vacating hers. Those are not easy seats for Democrats to recruit for, because it regulates the oil and gas industry. And sometimes, folks will double down on their finances with those on the Republican side. So those are scary races to take on. And we want to make sure we have high quality candidates there that understand those industries and that are ready to deliver on our platform for those. Those are the ones that I'm really focused in. You're going to have great candidates at the top of our ticket. So everybody take a beat there. We just need to get through the sledge session. What I want to know is how we're filling out comptroller, land commissioner, railroad commissioner, and all those statewide judicials. In addition to, how do we make sure we have a Democrat in every congressional district in the state of Texas? How do we make sure that every state Senate seat and every state House seat has a candidate? We recruited more candidates in 2024 than we had in 2018. So we've been doing pretty good on the candidate recruitment front. We just need to keep barreling ahead, raising money to help cure with filing fees if we need to, and doing everything we can to fill that ballot out. My goal is to have a Democrat in every single congressional seat, every statewide seat, every Senate seat, every state House seat, and we're going to get as close to that as we possibly can.
Well, and obviously you're right. There's folks will kind of shake out, but particularly the down ballot, that can be a challenge, and glad to hear that. So Rhett Duberstein, who's one of your lecturers, has a question, but we don't have that much time and we have a really hard stop at 10:30. That's why we do it. So Rhett, sorry about this. What I want to end with, which kind of we always use with the legislatures, members of Congress that have been on this, is what I call the really important question. What are you most optimistic about?
Oh goodness. What I'm most optimistic about right now? I have a lot of things I'm optimistic about because the last 2 weeks have just been full of energy and I just love leading this party. What I'm most optimistic about right now is that it has been a long time since I have seen all of the Democratic groups on the ground getting along. I know that sounds very basic level 101, but we spend a lot of time as a party fighting ourselves and fighting each other. But for the last 2 weeks, it has really felt that people have honed in on this idea that we don't have the energy and the time for that. And we're all on a team together, moving in the same direction and laser focused in on how we beat Republicans and call them out on their shit, right? That is what I'm optimistic about, because when we start operating as a unit, when we start operating as a team, not as loose factions of people who fight amongst ourselves, create fiefdoms and silos, but instead working together in the same direction, that's how this is going to get done. That's what I'm most optimistic about right now. I'm pretty confident that Ken Paxton is going to be the Republican nominee next year. He's the least popular elected official in the state of Texas. And Democrats are consistently overperforming in that race, even when they don't have the money. I feel really good about 2026. If we all keep operating in this mindset that whether somebody is our favorite person or not, we're on a team together, moving in the same direction, I know that we're going to do really great things together, and I can't wait.
Well, good answer. Thank you very much for joining us. We've hit our witching hour. Good luck down in the valley. I know you got a lot of stuff going down there. You're always welcome down in Harris County, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for having me. We'll talk to y'all soon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Take care.